Every 107 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted. Around 68% of sexual assault victims never report to the police. The American society has developed a stereotype for victims and offenders, resulting in a violent society both physically and mentally for these victims. The cultural and social factors that contribute to a society that condones sexual violence are key factors when looking for long-term goals and societal levels of maintaining sexual violence. What is sexual violence? Sexual violence is a sexual act committed against someone without the victim's given consent. Consent is always verbal, not implied. Verbal consent is using your words to offer permission for intimacy. Facial expressions, body language, and other gestures oftentimes may give you the impression of consent, resulting in non-verbal, unconsented physical or emotional sexual violence. Verbal confirmation is always needed by all persons involved in any sexual activity. When consent is withdrawn, withheld, or not able to be given, that constitutes for sexual assault. Sexual violence is divided into many different types of sexual violence. For this movie, I'm going to be focusing on rape. You might be asking yourself, what is rape? The legal definition of rape is penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina or anus with any body part or object, or anal penetration by a sex organ of another person without the consent of the victim. A constant definition of sexual violence with rape is needed to monitor the prevalence of sexual violence and examine trends over time. Oftentimes, people get confused thinking that men are the only people that rape. No, that is wrong. Women can rape too. Women are not only victims, women can be perpetrators, and men can also be victims of sexual violence. About 1 in 5 women and about 1 in 71 men will be raped at some point in their lives. This shows the relationship between other sexual offenses compared to rape when being reported to the police. Only 3% of rapists ever serve a day in jail. 1 in 3 men would rape if they knew they would have a chance and get away with it. Behavior patterns may differ between the offender's victims, forcing the offender to act in a different way as well as the more experienced offender's patterns may change over time due to prior experiences and mistakes, meaning previous behavior influences future behavior through reinforcement and punishment. Offenders also have a very good awareness of the environmental structure when they are committing their crimes. When investigating a sexual offense, it becomes crucial to take into account the variations between different offenders and the patterns of crimes they commit. Cultural context also plays into roles when you're talking about sexual violence, because one act of sexual activity may be seen as okay in one culture, and in another culture it might be stepping a boundary. Sexual abuse has become so prevalent in life experiences that so many people have experienced sexual victimization. Single versus multiple incident victims, when you become re-victimized, the dramatic effect of your psychological ability to continue to function the same as before becoming a victim of sexual violence. If after an assault a woman has integrated a sense of helplessness and powerlessness into her self-esteem, then those unresolved feelings may place her at risk for future victimization. Sexual assault can happen to anyone, anywhere, regardless of your age, race, economic status, lifestyle, religion, culture, sexual orientation, or gender. Each victim of sexual violence is a separate person, having distinct and separate needs, and should be treated so. Society in responding to the victims and offenders of sexual crimes. The American society has normalized sexual violence, resulting in less victims reporting these sex crimes. Attitudes are shaped or reinforced by both institutional and micro-level interactions in everyday life that sexual identities in terms of masculine or feminine. Bars and nightclubs use drink specials or contests such as lady nights or half-price drink specials. All of these are socializations where offenders may find their victims. Peak hours for offenders are between 12 to 2 a.m. Oftentimes, victims of sexual violence do not report these incidents to the police because of victim blaming and or the result of being under the influence of alcohol or drugs. While not excusing the offender or shouldering the entirety of the blame, they frequently made reference to the social environment, their own behavior, as well as the behavior of other women. Women or men, when have become victims of sexual violence, should always be treated as the victim. Unfortunately, this is not the case, and more often than not, the victim does not want to relive the experience by contacting police or other authority figures. Explaining what happened to you is hard enough, but when the blame is put on you because of the environment, your behavior, and the act of the women around you, you just start to feel as if you have done something to provoke this sexual assault. More oftentimes than not, when someone is raped, it's by someone they know, an acquaintance, friend, an intimate partner, or someone that they have a relationship with, like a professor or a manager at work. More often than not, it is not someone that's a complete stranger. There have been many studies about girls on college campuses that have been raped. These are the top 5 reasons on why they don't report it. 4% of college sexual assault victims report the incident to the police or campus security. Top reasons why victims said they did not report. 1. They did not think it was serious enough to report. 2. They thought it was unclear that the crime had happened. 3. They did not want anyone to know. 4. They did not have proof. 5. They thought the police would not take it seriously. Rape often occurs during the ages of 18 to 24. This is a table from 2010 to 2013, and the average of women raped per 1,000 students. Over a 4-year period in college, 1 in 52.6 women are raped. If you have not been raped and been victimized by an offender of sexual assault, that is good. You want to keep it that way. So develop boundaries. Develop buddy systems, especially when you're in college. Know your limit when you're drinking and out having your fun. Know what time is best for you to go home and if you should be walking alone or if you should take a cab and pay that extra money. Educate yourself about society, cultural norms, behaviors, and values. Develop those verbal cues and attitude behaviors that you know are a no-no and that you need to get yourself out of that situation so that you don't become the next victim. If you become a victim of rape, find somewhere safe you can go. Call the authorities or call someone that you can talk to. Make sure you make yourself feel safe and that you realize that this was not your fault.